Michael Savage, the Greenways Development Officer. Right, the time is, 24 minutes past 2. Oh, we haven't got a treat. My humble apologies. Now, folks, it was with great sadness that we learnt of the passing of Mr. Billy Chambers last night. Billy had been such a good friend of this programme for years, and he never ceased to delight us with his enthusiasm and his passion for beekeeping and the natural world, and that younger people in particular would come after him with the passion for those important things. Of course, our archive is full of moments with Billy down the years, and here he was only last year telling me why bees never fail to fascinate him.
It's the first natural sweetener that mankind has ever used. If you put it on an open wound, it has antiseptic properties. Prior to the First World War, they used it a lot for that sort of stuff. Because it's unfiltered, there's lots of pollen in it, and they reckon that inoculates you against hay fever.
Yeah, I want to come to that.
That's anecdotal. Honey has always been used for like opera singers before they had a sore throat.
But what is it? Is it just sugar, or is it the saliva of a bee's? But what is honey?
Honey is a mixture of sucrose and dextrose, and it's inverted in the bee's stomach. There's enzymes put into it as well. The wee bee goes out the flower, brings some nectar back, it passes it into its stomach, adds enzymes, passes it to another bee as it comes into the hive. They take a wee bit to taste it, know where it's coming from, and then they store it and they evaporate the water off it.
From a bee's mouth to a bee's mouth?
Yes. That's exactly the way it works.
Really?
And
give that a wee chew there, Bert. All right, then you chewed it right, go on. All right, then.
All bees that forage and work in the hive are female.
Right.
The males just sit about.
Belinda then.
Yeah, Belinda the bee's famous and somewhere. Right. I don't know. It escapes from.
Is that what they do? They sort of bulk it up.
Basically, yeah. But it's lovely stuff.
Of course. But Billy, what's the difference essentially then between me going home with a spoonful of white sugar and water and honey?
Sugar's refined. It's boiled. All the goodness is, could be taken out of it. I'm not saying it is taken out of it. Sugar is an antiseptic substance as well for cuts and that, but the natural honey is better. Honey can be stored for years and years. There's anecdotal evidence that it was, they took honey out of the Egyptian
mummies, tombs,
Egyptian tombs, and that it was still edible.
Goodness.
No, I don't know about that either.
Did that go on your toast? No. In their mind.
But you find all sorts of usual things when you're keeping bees and that, you know.
Billy Chambers, long-standing friend of Billy's and indeed a member of the Derry and District Beekeepers Association. That's Thomas Morrison. Thomas, I'm so sad about the passing of Billy, the definition of a larger-than-life character.
Yes. And could I send my condolences to Jared and his friends and family just before we start?
Sure.
He was an amazing character, and I had known Billy for quite a long time, and some of the things we got up to in beekeeping, wouldn't want to write about it.
Yeah. Thomas, just stay close to your phone, would you? Because we certainly want to hear what you have to say about your friend today. Just how did you two meet up? How did you become buddies?
Billy, I knew Billy before beekeeping quite a long time, but I never actually knew he was a beekeeper. So the first meeting I went to down at Roe Valley, I was thinking about taking up beekeeping. Billy was sitting there, and I says to him, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I have bees in the backyard." And so I never knew that Billy had kept bees before that. So he's been keeping me right ever since, and that's about 12 years ago.
Thomas, there was something about his method, and it made him a natural mentor. I mean, I think the listenership felt mentored, and personally, of course, he would have mentored you.
Yes, and a lot of the local beekeepers now would have come into. And Billy, even Billy, whenever he was driving his taxi, he always talked about bees to people. And he'd no greater pleasure when, he got a new bee, as we used to call them, and, and his enthusiasm was, always sprung through. And he used to ring me up and say, right, I've got so-and-so's coming to the preliminary class. And, he was really enthusiastic about it. So he was a real passionate beekeeper and teacher of bees as well.
Do you know, I'm feeling a bit of regret today, Thomas, because the last time we had spoke, Billy had said, there's more to it than bees. He's saying about... And we basically had nailed or sort of penciled down an idea for a series where Billy would take us into the religion of bees, the whole Christian connection down the years, the iconography of bees, bees and monastic life, bees and heraldry. And he was, where did all that come from, Thomas? Do we know why Billy got the bug for the bees?
I don't. It's the strangest thing is I have never actually discussed why he started beekeeping with him. But Billy had a great belief that bees was good for mental health as well. So I think it was something he would have liked to have pursued, where say older people. The social aspect of keeping bees, and even for depression, because you have to look after the bees, you have to be calm when you're going in to inspect bees. So Billy had, ideas about that, and I think he would have liked to have pursued those, and it's unfortunate that he's
gone.
Passed so early.
Well, what do you mean ideas? I mean, I always felt that the man had an instinct that he listened to the bees or something, that he really... just in the zone, I suppose, Thomas. What were the kind of ideas you've alluded to there?
Oh, it was that because you have to be calm. Really, Billy emphasised being very, very calm and collected whenever you went to a beehive. If you were annoyed or agitated when you go to a beehive, the bees sense that. So when you go to a beehive, you want to be calm. So Billy had this idea that if you could teach, say, people with depression, they have to take responsibility to look after the bees. It gets them up out of the bed in the morning.
I get it.
And then when they go to the bees, they have to be calm and no stress, etc., etc. So you actually build that up. The first time you go into a box of bees and you have 30,000 bees buzzing at you, it can be quite daunting. But then, as you come on, you get used to it and you settle down, and then it becomes a pleasure then to actually work with the bees.
But I think it was his manner as much as anything. I've said on social media today, Thomas, Billy could have come in the studio and read the phone book, and people would have been intrigued. He just had something about him that was peaceable.
Yes. And he had and his mannerisms, he was always welcoming and, etc. So, he was always open, and he was, as a mentor, like he was, and he would have went the ends of the earth. If a beekeeper or a beginner rang him up and says, I'm in trouble here, there was no distance he wouldn't have travelled to go and sort them out.
Indeed. Well, Thomas, listen, thank you so much. It was a bit of a shock. The family were in touch to say that Billy was gravely ill, but you always hope, you kind of hope, don't you, that it's a passing thing, but it's just so desperately sad.
Could I just say one last thing before I go?
Yes.
Billy used to have a saying, only the bees know the secret.
Mm-hmm.
I think Billy knew a few of the secrets as well, but now he knows them all.
Thomas, thank you for that. Thank you very much indeed. A friend of Billy Chambers for over 30 years. That's Thomas Morrison today speaking for the Derry and District Beekeepers Association. Online, before I bring Colm in, George Rowe, our old friend, the scientist and environmentalist. I'm shocked and saddened to hear this news. Billy and I did judo together. I can't picture Billy Chambers and George Rowe doing judo, but as young men, I'm sure everything was possible. In the legendary Kosaka Judo Club, I fondly remember the weekend in 72 when he drove a bunch of us to Galway and back in his Ford Anglia for the All-Ireland Championships. That's lovely, George. Thank you for that. Patricia and Niamh Morrison are moved by the news today. Matt and Hilda were heartbroken about Billy May. Rest in peace. Billy Scampton, then, the event controller for Derry City Football Club. I'm so sorry to hear this. A wonderful man. He introduced me to beekeeping. I didn't know Billy Scampton did the bees a couple of years ago, and he was a font of knowledge on the subject. It was always great to listen to him chatting about the bees and to be in his company. He'd be greatly missed by us all. Mark Durkin there, Mark H. That is, I'm sorry to hear this sad news. A lovely man. Darren Harkin then, a great guy, says Darren. Tommy, so sad to hear Billy's passing. Lovely man, did judo with him as well. There you are. Billy was a black belt in judo. Well, how come we never knew that? Billy Chambers was a black belt in judo. Paul Gosling, then, the political advisor. Very sorry to hear this. Billy was a great help to me sorting out the move of a bee's nest. The friendliest of men, says Paul. I will miss him saying hello on a Saturday morning in Brook Park. Billy did great work, I seem to remember, in Brook Park, where there was a wee collective, and also on the roof of Ann Coulter Lawn, where they had done a whole thing about pollination and bees for years. Derry Taxis, then, the big taxi company regionally. Billy was a Derry taxi driver for the last 3 years, a larger-than-life character. He'll be sadly missed. Karen then says, yes, I met him one day getting a taxi. I did judo with Billy back in the day. He was telling me about the bees. He should have been an ambassador, says Derry Taxis, for the bee and the honey industry. See, you always realise these things when people are gone. Kathleen, Jerry, Anne Mackenzie, sad to hear this. He was a superb person, full of care, faith and laughter. Deepest condolences to Geraldine and the family. Cynthia, then, one of our regulars. Sad to see this. Enjoyed listening to him over the years. He was so knowledgeable. He certainly was that, Cynthia. The family then, Emma and the family are saying we'll be listening today. Our thoughts are with you all, Emma, and the Chambers connection. Very sad, says Susan O'Doherty. Tony Forrester, the Chamber Chief in Letterkenny. Oh, such sad news, says Tony. I worked with Billy many years ago in his business. My thoughts and prayers are with his family. May he rest in peace. Well, look, before I bring our own Colm or buckle in, because Colm, of course, I would have crossed paths with Billy down the years, suited and booted to meet the bees, I seem to remember. Last year, Billy was telling me, was a busy year for him and his bees, as he told me in this instance. Right, Billy, the pollen bomb, that's what started us talking this week, because the great heat and the early flowers and all the rest. I mean, you're going to get flowering in late spring, early summer every year anyway, but the pollen bomb, did the pollen bomb your hives, no?
Yeah. At the minute, they've been bringing in pollen this last 6 weeks. The first pollen to arrive here is gorse and dandelion and the sort of spring, early spring, late winter flowers, bluebells and stuff like that. So the pollen is essential for the bees' health because they use that to make bee bread. It's pollen mixed with royal jelly. Yes. And some honey.
And the royal jelly's herself, the queen?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. No. The queen doesn't produce that. The young nurse bees. When a bee hatches out after 3 weeks as an egg and a larvae and a molten on the bee, it arrives out. The first thing it does is clean the cell out, then it starts to feed. They have a wee gland on their head, a hyperpharyngeal gland, where they produce bee milk.
Bee milk?
Bee milk.
Out of their heads?
Out of this wee gland in their head. And they mix that with pollen and honey, and they feed that to the grubs. They're laid as an egg. Day 1, we're standing up straight. Day 2, they're leaning over. Day 3, they're starting to hatch out. And day 4, they're curled over. Then they get fed for 3 days.
It's like alien pod things, horrible looking things on the bees, and they're nice.
Yeah. But and then when the queen bee is selected, they float the queen bee in royal jelly. She's force fed or a glut of honey or royal jelly for 9 days, and then this thing's sealed.
Right, Billy. To surmise, there's milk that comes out of a bee's head.
Bee brood food.
Right. Honey is basically hochel and bulk out of a bee's mouth.
No, it's nectar from the flowers
out of their mouth,
and they collect it in their honey stomach.
Chew it,
and mix it with enzymes.
Give it the next girl.
And then they pack it on this cell.
And honey, Billy, in a word, is potentially good for hay fever sufferers.
Yes.
Local honey.
Yeah, local honey is the best.
Billy Chambers, there. Listening to that is long-standing Radio Foil producer and programme maker Colm Arbuckle. Colm, you know, even forgetting the bees and all the rest, it's the delivery. There are some voices that come along, and you just know this person was nearly born to be on the radio. He was a distinct character, Colm.
Well, you hit it on the head there when you said you could listen to Billy reading the phone book, because you could. And this was the first impression I got when I met him. I met him by coincidence. You know, I'd heard his name before because he had taken over his father's refrigeration business, Chambers Refrigeration, after his father's untimely death. But by coincidence, and this is how I did come to meet him, his younger sister, Pearl, was my wife Sharon's best friend from school days.
That's
and
right.
has remained so all their lives. Now, Pearl lives in New York, so anytime we would go to visit my daughter in New York, we would always go and see Pearl and her husband and stay there maybe overnight or something, have a bit of a social crack. Consequently or insequently, whenever Pearl came here to Derry, we would have a number of wee social occasions. She would come to us, or we would go over to the family home in Lawrence Hill. And this is where I first met Billy. It was at one of these social gatherings in Lawrence Hill. And you're immediately struck by his warmth, by the way he told you something. You were fascinated to hear him talking about any subject at all. But of course, it wasn't very long when you were talking to him that he didn't bring up the bees.
The
And
bees.
this is how... The bees. The first, I found it absolutely, totally fascinating. And I was listening to those clips that you were playing there now, and I'm still as equally as fascinated today, even though, I mean, I've heard loads of those things before now, but I'm still fascinated by all the wee details that he knew about them. And then what happened then was I decided that I said I have to do something with you, Billy, and we made an arrangement for. He took me over to, you mentioned the Brook Park colony, the bees part there in Brook Park. He took me over there. He suited and booted me.
You're like the you're like I have the photograph of you and him up. You have the headphones on underneath all your
Yes.
gear. You're like the Michelin man. And
Absolutely.
Billy's there with a wee light coat and an open neck shirt.
Yeah. Now, Thomas there was saying that you have to be calm around bees. It was quite daunting. You know, if you're not used to it, it's actually quite daunting.
Of course.
And I had that little recorder thing in my hand, and I wanted to get the sound of the hive, because once you take the lid of the hive, you get that sort of drone of the bees that you would hear. But when you hear thousands of them doing it at one time, it's an unbelievable sound. So I wanted to get that sound, and I said, Billy, will I be able to put my hand on there and record it? He says, now, if you need to be very, very calm, because if you start to get nervous, they'll sense it, they'll come out and swarm. So a few deep breaths, got the recorder going, just stuck my hand in, and I got the most wonderful recording of thousands of bees inside a hive. Fantastic. You know, he nearly had me talked in. Well, he did have me talked in to getting a hive in my back garden, because he came out to my house one day to see where I lived. I lived on the edge of Brahen Woods, and there are apparently many species of floral species and all around here, which bees would love. He would say, and he said this would make a unique. They would make unique honey out here, which wouldn't be the same as any honey they would get over the town or anywhere else about. And he says, what about us getting a wee hive out here? And he sort of had me talked into it. Now, it was a project that didn't come to fruition, but it was on the long finger. But
your intentions were good, like mine were. That wee series. I just wish we'd made that wee series now, because I don't even think he knew it, Colin. But he just had. He had that talent in him to be an explainer, to be an educator, and to make it, you know, almost essential radio. It's just one of those voices you would stop and listen to.
Absolutely. I remember in my very young days when I was training to be a producer, Mark, one of the senior producers in Radio Foyle was talking about another presenter, and he said to me, who was going out to record stuff, he says, he will bring you back gold. Billy was a man who would have brought you gold for the sake of the radio. He was just great, you know. A lovely man, beautiful man, and lovely to talk to and nice to meet.
Well, indeed, and give us much joy and pleasure down the years on this station for sure. Adrian Carlin, saddened to hear the death of Billy Chambers. Respects and deepest sympathy to Geraldine and his extended family and friends. He left a legacy, an inspirational character, says Adrian. Colin, thank you for joining us today. Colin Buckle and all of us who knew and worked with Billy down the years in this station extend our sincere condolence to the family. Billy was a one-off. I think that's really one way you would just think about that man. A one-off. So we're sad about that news. Now, this we're sad. We've lost. You know, we've been remembering him on Freedom Friday as well. We lost Davy as well lately. Our in-house farmer, so to speak, Mr. Crockett. Anyway, Eamon's anniversary was on Sunday, and this is one of his little masterpieces. I'm playing this in memory today of Mr. Billy Chambers.
this busy street where past recall, focused in a storefront camera's gaze, and in a day or two they will erase